too sure. Come on. All right, I'm gonna go over. You stay on this side. Get that bird.
Welcome to the Wander and Wingshooter podcast. My name is Ryan Reddick. I'll be hosting the podcast. I've hunted upland birds in my home state of Oklahoma all my adult life, and over the last 15 years, I've wandered in pursuit of game birds to Arizona, Colorado, Texas, Kansas, Wyoming, and Michigan. This great country is incredibly majestic, and especially so when viewed from behind a pair of bird dogs. I've met dozens of wonderful people in the uplands, and I hope to introduce you to as many of them as I can through this podcast. Join me as I wander the uplands, learning about birds, dogs, and guns. Today I'll be talking with Craig Jones of Fruitport, Michigan. Craig has traveled extensively to hunt birds as well as waterfowl. We'll discuss his travels and the hunters, birds, and dogs he's met along the way. The podcast is sponsored by Pike Gear. An upland hunter who hunts hard needs clothing that is light, makes hunting easier, not harder. An upland hunter is always on the move and always thinking about his next move. He needs clothing that can move with him, clothing that doesn't hold him back or weigh him down. Pike Gear is designed for upland hunters who are always on the go and always dreaming about their next hunting trip. Visit pikegear.com to find the best upland clothing you will ever wear. Follow Pike Gear on Facebook and Instagram. And I know, Craig, that you know Brent Pike as well. Is that correct?
Yes, I've known Brent for quite a few years now.
Really great guy.
Him and I are usually bidding against each other at the Rough Grouse banquets. Kind of how I came to know him.
I hope you win more than you lose.
Well, it isn't so much a matter of winning. I usually just try and bid it up for Brent.
Running him up. Well, Brent told me earlier this week that his first shirts and pants are going to be available pretty soon. I looked on the website last night. He doesn't have them for sale yet, but I imagine any time. So for those listeners out there that are interested, go to pikegear.com and check out his clothing line. They should be available to order online fairly quickly. And I hope he gets you a pair, Craig.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
So, Craig, you and I met last fall as a result of an introduction by Brent, if I remember correctly.
Yep, that's correct.
And you came down to Oklahoma on your way to Arizona and hunted quail with me one day. Is that right?
I think we hunted 2 days.
2 days. Oh, my gosh. Took up a huge amount of my time, huh?
Had a good time down there. That was the first time I'd ever been to Oklahoma, and that's some really nice country down there.
I hope we treated you well.
Yeah, the only complaint I had is you don't go to Beaver, Oklahoma for food, but the hunting was phenomenal. I really enjoyed the hunting.
Yeah, you sure don't come here for the cuisine, do you?
No.
So, Craig, tell the folks that are listening a little bit about yourself, just in general.
Been bird hunting most of my adult life. Grew up. My stepdad was a dog trainer and been around dogs ever since I was big enough to even walk a dog on a lead.
And you told me last year what you do for a living, but I have forgotten.
When I was working, I was a controls engineer. Basically, I programmed robots to build cars for a living.
I'll be doggone. And your illness has caused you not to be able to continue that work at this point. Is that right?
Yep. Back in January of 2018, I was heading to Arizona for a quail hunt, and I had a couple seizures, and they discovered I had a brain tumor. That's when I learned that I had glioblastoma, brain cancer, and I've been trying to recover from that ever since. I've had 4 brain surgeries and spent most of my time trying to get healthy enough to go hunting.
Yeah, boy. And you've sure been hunting, haven't you?
I've tried to get everywhere I can find upland birds.
And last I talked to you, you were married. I assume that's still the case. That's a rather dangerous question for me to ask.
No, I'm married with 2 children. We adopted them a few years ago and slowly trying to get them into hunting, and hopefully they'll have a love for hunting like I do.
Absolutely. I've not had that luck with my girls. I don't know what I did wrong. It's not something that has lit their fire yet. Maybe as they get older, they'll be excited about going into the field with me.
Yeah, it's been busy around here lately, trying to get everything ready for hunting season. That's coming up later this week.
Oh yeah, is that you guys open up a lot earlier? Well, that's not true. Our dove shooting opens up September 1.
Well,
I usually go the first weekend.
I'm going to head out to Montana. That's when the sharptail opens up. But we'll probably make a stop in North Dakota and do a little dove hunting.
That sounds like fun. So talk to me a little bit about how you were introduced originally to bird hunting. You said you're a waterfowl hunter too, so I mean, did you were those all started at about the same time, or did you start one before the other?
I probably started waterfowl hunting a little younger. You know, it's a little more social. You're sitting in a blind. Had Chesapeakes when I was a kid, so having retrievers, it was kind of a natural thing to hunt waterfowl.
And your dad did that, you and your father would go?
Yep.
And that was how I was introduced to hunting. Was my dad would take us dove hunting primarily, but also quail hunting. And that was time, that my little brother and I would spend with my father in the fall and winter.
Yeah, when we weren't waterfowl hunting, we'd go hunt grouse.
With the same Chesapeakes, I assume.
Yep, we used to have a good population of grouse here in southern Michigan, and I could literally shoot them out in the backyard. It wasn't a problem.
Is that not true now?
No, that's not true.
You have to travel further north.
If I go a couple hours north, I can get into decent grouse numbers, but I got to go a couple hours north.
Well, and I remember when I was a kid, my dad had taken us dove hunting, and he'd given my brother and I a couple of his shotguns to hunt, and we probably weren't 12, 13, maybe 14 years old. And between us, he'd given us this cardboard box, and it's a pretty good sized box, that he'd just thrown leftover shells into for probably several years. When he'd come in from a hunt and whatever he had in his bag, he'd throw them into this box. So there was a bunch of
I have one of those boxes right now myself.
Yeah. There was a bunch of 4s and 6s and 9s. And, I mean, it was just truly a grab bag of shells. We
call that a bridge mix. Pretty much when you go over the Mackinac Bridge, that's what you use.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you that my brother and I shot that whole box of shells that evening at those doves. The doves were thick and they were coming into water, and he and I just banged away and banged away and banged away. And after that evening, Dad would give us each a box of shells when we went hunting. He was a little bit more stingy after we shot up all his extras. Goodness, excuse me, Greg. So as a kid, you grew up hunting waterfowl more frequently, probably, it sounds like, than you did the bird hunting or the grouse.
Yep. Yeah, grouse was just something we did to fill in when the duck numbers weren't real good, or we had bad weather that kept the ducks from moving in. We'd go around the house and shoot grouse.
And so what changed that?
The flyways over the years have changed. I don't know if it's the global warming or weather patterns, whatever, but the flyways have definitely changed. And the habitat for the grouse isn't here anymore, so that got rid of the grouse, and the ducks have been constantly changing. Where it used to be, we could just minutes from here shoot limits of mallards, and now you don't see that many mallards, but the sea ducks, the old squaw, they're just clouds, thousands and thousands of them out just off the shore here now, which traditionally those weren't even around.
And are they, this is probably showing my ignorance a little bit, are they less desirable to hunt than the mallards are?
Well, they're fun to hunt. You go out in a layout boat in Lake Michigan and hunt them. It's a really good time, but as far as eating, no, they're not as good as a mallard to eat, but they're a ball to hunt.
But at some point, you just decided you were going to start chasing upland birds more so than chasing the waterfowl?
Yeah, once I started getting into pointers, I kind of crossed over to upland and just kind of been going that direction ever since. I really like upland hunting. I still waterfowl hunt, but now waterfowl hunting is more of a fill-in. Like out on the prairie, we might hunt upland all day long and then just go set on a pothole in the evening to rest and shoot some ducks.
Just to see what's there and burn some ammunition if you get a chance.
Yep.
Have you done any big game hunting?
I did a bear hunt this spring up in Canada. I was able to get a black bear, a spring bear.
I saw some of your stuff on Instagram, some pictures.
And I went last year. I had an elk tag here in Michigan and tried, but the elk weren't cooperating, so I ended up eating tag soup after that.
Have you ever had elk?
Yes, I have. It's incredible.
Yeah, I was going to say you're missing out. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
I'm missing my New Mexico elk hunt this year. I'm going to go to North Dakota and go bird hunting instead. I usually go to and spend a week in New Mexico chasing elk in September, but I've opted to try something different this year.
Yeah, I like big game hunting, but since I really can't use my bird dog, I kind of have shied away from it because I enjoy hunting with my dog more than anything.
Me too. That's absolutely what draws me to it. If I can't do it with my dogs, I'm sure less excited about it. I may still get excited about it, but I'm less excited about it than if I can do it with my dogs.
Yep.
So you had short hairs when you came out. Has that been something that when you say you went to pointers, is that where you started, was with the short hairs?
Yeah, I went from Chesapeake's to an American Water Spaniel to German short hairs. And I've been stuck on German short hairs because they do everything I want them to do. And I'm really liking the lines that I have now.
Oh, they're sweet dogs. Pretty too. We don't, I don't see, there's a lot of short hairs in Kansas. A lot of guys run short hairs. And I see some in the quail fields here. Not as many as I do, of course, the pointers. Didn't really get exposed to setters a great deal until I met you gentlemen from up in Michigan and saw, seems like most of you have a setter in the kennel somewhere. So that was when I first got introduced to setters. I'd own any of those three species, frankly.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of good setters and English pointers over the years, but still short hair is my breed of choice. But I've definitely seen a lot of good dogs and other breeds.
Yeah.
I've been fortunate and have a very diverse group of friends with a very diverse group of dogs.
I think you guys see more up there with the grouse hunting, more of the flushing breeds, at least from the talk that I hear.
Well, a lot of guys with pointers that flush birds. They're really not flushers, but it works out that way.
Yeah, I've noticed that in Oklahoma too. Some of them even act like they're having a good time when some of those dogs act like they're having a good time out there flushing the birds 200 yards in front of you.
Yep.
Much to my frustration. So we were talking before we started recording, and you said you'd traveled from coast to coast waterfowl hunting. So I'm going to challenge you. Name the states and the species that you've hunted.
Oh, geez.
Take your time.
I can't even think of them all offhand. Pretty much the only thing I haven't shot duck-wise was a king eider. I've never been to Alaska. That would be more of a Pacific bird.
But you've hunted ocean, I guess it would be ducks or geese,
Yep.
on the Pacific and the Atlantic.
Not the Pacific, but the Atlantic. Like I say, the only spot I haven't hunted was the Pacific, but pretty much from the West Coast, Southern California, all the way to Cape Cod, I've hunted ducks.
And when you would travel, would you take your dogs with you?
Yes. When we did Cape Cod, though, I didn't run the dog because there was a lot of sharks in the water.
Oh, no. I don't have to worry about that in Oklahoma.
No, when we were down in parts of Arkansas, we'd run into alligators down there, and same with Florida. That presented a unique challenge, but
Yeah, I've known some men that raise cattle in Louisiana. I'm friends with an old cattle buyer, and he went down to look at some cattle on a ranch in Louisiana. He said they driving these roads and they were about half submerged, and there's water standing just everywhere with cattle out on the berms and some of them even in the water. He said they were the rattiest looking cows he'd ever seen. And the longer it went, he just couldn't help himself. Finally looked over at the rancher and he said, is this the best you got? And the rancher said, son, we judge cattle down here differently. Those are the ones that can get away from the alligators. So I'd find that kind of difficult to run a bird dog in my opinion, or even a lab. That might be a heck of a surprise.
Yeah.
So, and I guess it's, again, showing my ignorance. I think about the waterfowl hunting as a primarily southern pursuit. Then I've shot some ducks down here and in Texas and in Arkansas. But the way you're talking, they always talk about the prairie pothole regions, but I've just never been up there to hunt ducks. Probably some really good waterfowl hunting in the northern part of the United States, sounds like.
If you can catch the migration, it's phenomenal.
And not really different, just more open.
No, you'll just have better numbers of ducks.
Okay.
And shooting ducks over decoys is shooting ducks over decoys.
Yeah, and it's a fun experience. For
Yeah.
sure. So upland species. What upland species have you taken?
I've shot everything except for a ptarmigan and a prairie chicken. Those are the two left on my list.
Well, you're going to have to go to Alaska, it sounds like to me.
Well, I might here in a few weeks head to Colorado for ptarmigan.
Okay, try to sneak in a ptarmigan hunt in Colorado.
Yeah.
Then I don't know much about. I know that they're available there. They're not very widespread there, are they?
No, not like Alaska, no.
So it's just almost like a focus hunt. You kind of know the area they're going to be in, and you go there specifically to take a couple of ptarmigan.
Yep.
And tree line or probably even above.
Yeah, it'd be above the tree line.
So a little climbing.
Yeah, it'd be closer to 13,000 feet. So yeah, it'd be up there.
And of the upland game you've taken, what's your favorite?
So I was set on the rough grouse for a while, but I've really come to love the sharp-tail, just simply because you got to work at it. You got to put in the miles to get sharp-tail. Really fun bird to hunt, and I just love the wide open spaces you find them in. And the dog work, they're perfect for a dog to work. Did some blue grouse hunting last year, and I really enjoyed that. They were a fun bird to hunt, mainly because you were up in the mountains, up in the cloud line, so that just made it a little more enjoyable, a little more scenic.
When I killed blue grouse in New Mexico, we found them below tree line, but not much. I mean, they were probably 9,500, 10,000 feet where we found them.
Most of the blue grouse we found were about 8,000 feet, almost to the inch.
Okay. And there was just a line, kind of a layer there that they preferred.
Yep. They definitely wanted to be right there.
Yeah. And they held for the dogs really well. I mean, the hardest part of that experience for me was finding them, because it's rough country. And I really didn't have anybody that had hunted them before enough to give me much insight. So I was just trying to figure out where the most likely place to be, that they would be, and managed to find some birds, but not a lot.
Yeah, it was like anything. It took us about 3 days to kind of figure it out. Once we started figuring out the habitat they wanted, we definitely were into the good bird numbers then.
And you had some sense about the elevation. I mean, you could look and know kind of where to start anyway, I guess would be the best way to put it. And that's probably true of almost all the species you hunt, isn't it?
Yeah. Once it doesn't matter where I go. Usually takes a couple, 3 days to get dialed in. Once you figure out what they're eating and their habitat, you usually start finding good birds.
Yeah. Yeah. So
we hunted sage for the first time last year. I'd never hunted sage grouse, and once I figured out that if you're seeing sharptail, you're not in sage country. So once we got out of the sharptail cover and got into the sage cover, we definitely had plenty of birds to hunt.
Yeah. Oh, those are some big old birds, aren't they?
Oh, yeah.
My dog, when we shot sage grouse, my old Vizsla, she'd go on point, and you could see them big old birds out ahead of her, and they would move. They wouldn't sit. They weren't running, but they were walking generally away from her. Here she is on point. You look out ahead of her, I don't know, 20 yards or so, and there's 2 or 3 great big old birds walking through the sagebrush. I can only imagine what she must have been thinking. I know what I was thinking. I was like, first time we saw them, and I knew they were big birds. First time we saw them, I was like, wow, look at those things.
Yeah, the first one I had seen, I almost stepped on, and it was a big old bomber male. And when he took off, I didn't shoot it at first because I thought it was a turkey.
Yeah, I bet that's
right. It dawned on me, dummy, that's the bird you're looking for right there.
Boom. I did not find them hard to hit. I will say that.
No, they're not hard to hit.
They were more difficult to find than they were to shoot, that's for sure. They're a neat bird, and I found them to be beautiful in the hand. I mean, great big old bird. I'd say that's the biggest upland bird I've killed. So it is a sage grouse.
Yeah. And I was able to still harvest them all with my 28 gauge, so they're big, but they're not that big. So.
Yeah, that's right. And if you're close enough and do your part, that ought to be enough to take them, I'd think.
Yeah.
Did you shoot that 28 gauge at our Bob White's last year?
Yes, I did.
I didn't realize that.
Yep. I had my 20 with me.
Yeah.
I was starting to run out of 28 gauge ammo. It'd been a long season, so.
Well, I find guys struggle sometimes to kill our Bob White with 28 gauge or wild Bob White. And I think that's more a factor of just their wild nature than it is any inherent toughness or anything like that. But, they don't give you a lot of close looks.
No. They're definitely a fast bird.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
If you can put a pellet in them, you'll bring them down, but you got to be quick, and you got to be able to pick them out of a covey. That's the big problem. They get up in those coveys. if you're too busy looking at 100 birds or whatever's in that covey, you're not going to hit the one you want.
Yeah, I got to pick one bird out. That's that's easy for me to say. That's wonder. I can tell you how to do it way better than I can show you how to do it.
Yep.
So talk to me about last fall, because the way you came to me was, Brent called me and said, "Hey, this guy's coming through Oklahoma on his way to Arizona, and he had never shot a wild bob white. He wants to give it a try. We go out with him a couple of days?" And I said, "Sure enough." So I did. So that's the way you came to me. But it was you and a buddy, you and a friend, right?
Yep, Paul and I.
Yeah. And you guys had left Michigan, and had you hunted other birds before you got to me in Oklahoma?
Yeah, I had been hunting before that in North Dakota and Montana.
And did you go back home and then come?
Yeah, I went back home I had some doctor's appointments, went back home and rested the dog and repacked and did some laundry, and we loaded up and headed out. Originally, the year before I was going to Arizona when I had a seizure and found out I had all my problems. And so last fall, I was trying to finish the hunt I started the year before.
I got you. And Oklahoma was just like
hunting in Manitoba, and the plan was to hunt from Manitoba all the way to Mexico. Unfortunately, my health, it didn't happen. So last year, the plan was to finish the season on the Mexican border, and we succeeded. We stopped with you for a little bit before we headed out, but
and Oklahoma was just like a bonus along the way, sort of amounted to.
Yep.
No good deal.
Yeah, I was able to shoot 4 different species of quail on that trip, so it worked out.
So really, it's like one trip that because of your illness got split into 2 different years.
Yes.
And Manitoba. Okay, so walk me through this. I've heard you talk about Manitoba, Montana. Did you ever hunt in Wyoming?
No, I've never hunted in Wyoming.
That's where I shot my sage grouse, was in Wyoming. So Manitoba, Montana, and North Dakota. Yeah, take me from North Dakota. Where else have you gone moving south?
Iowa.
What'd you hunt in Iowa?
Pheasants.
And then?
Yeah, that was previous year.
Yeah.
Went from there back up to Wisconsin, hunted some grouse, and then I went down to Arkansas, did some duck hunting. And then later that year, we went out to Cape Cod, did some duck hunting. And so Manitoba was on the list because I always heard it was good for ducks, so I wanted to get up there. So
that's and is that what you were doing in Manitoba, was duck hunting?
Yeah, we were hunting ducks and geese and cranes, and the plan, like I said, was to start there and end up on the Mexican border.
And I've read and heard that hunting in Canada, as far as access, is different than in the United States. What was access like up there?
Oh, the access sucked. It was a lot like Arkansas. It was all pay to play.
Okay.
You pretty much have to know where you're going and have arrangements. And they don't put out plot books like they do in the United States that tell you the landowners.
Yeah.
And the way their trespass laws are, you have to have permission to get on there. Well, you can't find the landowners because it seems everybody up there owns a farm 2 hours from where they live. So getting access, you almost have to go a year ahead to find the landowner and get permission for the following year.
And were they pretty generous with permission, or was it?
Yeah, they were if you could find them, but you could spend a lot of days just trying to run down a landowner.
We don't know. Huh. So they don't necessarily live on the properties.
No, that was rare. Rarely would you find that. And
And
every once in a while, if you seen them out working, you could stop and talk to them if they were loading up a truck, and they might tell you where the owner is, or you might get lucky and it was the owner, but that was rare.
okay. Well, that's different than what I had heard, you know. And of course, Montana has like state leased properties,
Well,
correct?
they have BLM everywhere in Montana,
Yeah.
which is like state land here in Michigan.
Uh-huh.
You can just go hunt it,
That's right.
and you don't need the permission. It works out really well.
This land is your land. This land is my land. And what about, what'd you say? Was it Ohio or Iowa?
Iowa?
Iowa.
Iowa pretty much all hunted private land in Iowa.
Yeah.
You either pay to play or you have to know somebody in Iowa if you want to get into birds. To just go do a state walk-on hunt in Iowa, good luck.
Yeah, and see, Oklahoma has, we hunted private land, I think, primarily when you hunted with me, but
Yes.
Oklahoma has good public land access.
I would say the best for access is North Dakota, because in North Dakota, if it's not posted, then you can hunt it.
Yeah, yeah.
Or
I
like
found
yeah,
Arizona. I mean, southern Arizona was fun to hunt in because there were a lot of public land.
yeah, the similarities between Canada and Arkansas, I would say, are pretty close.
Yeah. So when you hunted in Arizona, did you hunt on national forests and BLM? And,
We had access to some ranches.
uh-huh.
A good friend of mine, Tyler, has some friends down there, and his aunt runs a bed and breakfast that we stayed at in Douglas, and she knows a lot of the local ranchers, so that helped us get access. But we did hunt some BLM while we were down there.
Yeah.
But it definitely helped to know people down there.
Yeah, in my trips out to Arizona, we never lacked for the ability to find birds on public land. I found Arizona to be a wonderful place to hunt upland birds. You enjoyed it, did you not?
Oh, I fell in love with Arizona, and I want to try and get back down there this year, maybe in December. The only regret I have about Arizona was I didn't buy a duck license. Most of the big cattle ponds that we came up upon were full of ducks. And we were hunting quail, and I didn't buy a duck license because I was going to Arizona. Who goes to Arizona to duck hunt? There's some phenomenal duck hunting down in Arizona.
I'll be doggone. I wouldn't have guessed that, but
No,
makes sense. I found southern Arizona to be different than I expected it to be, frankly.
oh, it was beautiful though. I wish I'd have known about it 20 years ago, because I really like being out in the desert hunting quail.
Yeah.
You've got the scaled and the gambles and the merns, and it just, everyone has its challenges and they hold different, so you get different kinds of dog work. It was a lot of fun.
And did you manage to take an example of each of the three?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And then I was able, like I said, I shot the bobwhite in Oklahoma, so I was able to get 4 different species of quail on that trip.
Did we ever shoot a blue or a scaled quail?
No, I don't think we did.
Well, the ranches we hunted had those. That last year was kind of a down year for the scaled quail in this part of the country, but there's sure huntable populations of them.
Yeah, we had some hard times finding the scales in Arizona. Once we figured out how we wanted to hunt them, it helped. But again, it's one of those things. It took you a couple, 3 days to figure out where they're at and how they're working and get dialed right in, and then we were good.
Yeah. Yeah. So you guys called it the Lawyers, Guns, and Money Hunt. That's what I remember. How to get that name?
Well, as you know, I have a pretty diverse group of friends.
Mm-hmm.
You know, some of my friends are doctors, some are lawyers, some are ditch diggers, some are coal miners. It's a diverse group of friends. And so that was kind of the joke. And the old Warren Zevon song, Lawyers, Guns, and Money, it just seemed to kind of fit going down to Arizona, which kind of has a rich history in outlaws. It just seemed to kind of fit.
Did you ever find yourself in Tombstone?
Yes, we did. Paul's truck brakes went out in Tombstone.
We
were following a truck with no brake lights. Go figure.
Yeah. we stopped and ate lunch one day in Tombstone when we were quail hunting out there. And we got ready to pull out of town, and as we're driving out, there was a covey of probably 100 Gamble's quail that crossed the road and going into a housing subdivision out there on the outskirts of Tombstone. I was like, that's what we're looking for, guys. But I was fascinated with just going to Tombstone, having read all the history.
Yeah, that whole area is rich in history.
It really is, and beautiful. God, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Those mountains down there, the Huachucas, man, no prettier place on earth, I'll tell you.
Yeah, we were fortunate. We had a little bit of rain when we were down there. And one day we went into a section to hunt, and just in the time we were back there hunting from the rain, the desert bloomed.
Oh.
And it was one of the more beautiful things I've ever seen. It was incredible. It literally bloomed right before our eyes.
Oh, that's amazing.
Incredible experience.
So when you go to hunt, when you load your dogs up and you're going to go to Oklahoma or Arizona or North Dakota, I mean, how do you explain to the people that are listening how you decide what to take and how you set your truck up? I mean, I know that those are like really open-ended questions, but make some sense of that chaos for me a little bit.
Well, I've got gear every year I've been using for years. I typically start there, and I usually filter in some new gear every year to try different things out. And I try to, during the summer when I'm training the dogs, try to break things in and see what I like, what I don't like, and see what will make the cut to get out hunting. For the most part, though, it's been the same gear year after year. I just try to replace what I can as I wear things out.
And was it your truck or your buddy's truck that you guys were in Oklahoma?
That was Paul's truck.
And that truck's specifically set up to travel with dogs.
Yep.
He's got a built-in kennel.
Yeah, all we had to do was load shotgun shells, dog food, some bourbon, and we were good to go.
It's water tanks. You're carrying water with you.
Yep.
It was a really nice setup. Really nice setup. For somebody that travels a lot, that sure be the way to go. And I only remember the one short hair with you. Did you have more than one dog with you when you came to Oklahoma?
I just brought my one short hair Luke, and Paul brought his short hair Autumn.
Okay, and I thought he had two. Had an older dog maybe.
He had Woody with him, but I don't know if he hunted him much.
Yeah. But that Autumn dog is sure a pretty dog. And do you have plans for traveling to hunt birds? Well, you said you did, right? This fall.
Yeah, I should be leaving Thursday for Montana. Unless it's too hot, then we might just go to North Dakota Thursday and hunt doves until it cools off a little bit, and then head over to Montana.
Wow.
Just gonna kind of play it by ear and go wherever the scouting reports take me.
And how's your health holding up?
Well, I've had my share of challenges this year. I had surgery back in March, and they had another tumor they had to remove. And in the process of removing it, I lost a significant part of my vision on the left side and some of my mobility on the left side. So I've pretty much spent since March trying to get back healthy and get back to doing things, learning how to shoot again, getting up and walking again. It's all been a challenge, but I'm feeling up to hunting. So,
Well, good. That makes my heart sing, Craig. That those dogs and those birds motivate you to keep fighting the good fight.
and fortunately, my shooting never got any worse. I was never a great shot to begin with. So, and in spite of my challenges, I still won't be the worst shot in my group of friends. So,
I'm not going to have you name who is. I can tell you I'm pretty rough on people shooting when they hunt with me. I hope I was generous with you.
oh, if you weren't, I'm sure I had it coming.
uh,
I like a little trash talk. Helps keep me motivated.
Okay, good deal, good deal. Oh, you shared some of your whiskey with me when you were out here. Let's talk about that a little bit. That was great.
Yep.
You had a bottle of Pappy.
Yeah, I've got a 15-year bottle of Pappy I'm saving for later this week.
No.
Once I get out and shoot some birds.
Well, if you come back to Oklahoma, bring another one with you is all I'm going to say. That's great. That's great.
Yeah, I've definitely found that a bottle of Pappy will get you access in a lot of places.
Oh, man. Well, I know you've heard this, and I've heard people talk about you in different, bird hunting forums, and I know you've heard this, but I'm going to tell you this story, and I don't want to make you uncomfortable, but when you came out to Oklahoma last year, I was kind of in my own dark place. I really wasn't feeling good about the way things were going in my own life personally, and just was kind of in one of those blue funks. And I spent that time hunting with you and saw the fight that you were putting up and how much joy you took in the things that I, in effect, had been taken for granted. And that made such a difference to me. That was such a beam of light at a time when things were pretty dark for me. So it's important for me to tell you, Craig, how special that is, and at least how special it was to me. Do you understand?
Yes, and when all this happened and I got the bad news that I only had 14 months to live, the first thing that goes through your mind is you try to understand why. Why is this happening to me? You know, the old saying, everything happens for a reason. I've never put much stock into that, but ever since this happened, I've had people tell me how I inspired them, and it truly makes me believe that that's the reason right there.
Well,
and I've had people tell me some pretty good stories about how they've made some changes, and that really makes me feel like there's a purpose to all this. As tragic as it is, it feels like there's a purpose.
and I just tell you, speaking from experience, the time that I spent with you resulted in a load being lifted off of me that I've been carrying around for years. And I want to specifically thank you for that. And I want to encourage you to keep fighting that good fight, because if it did it for me, it's doing it for other people.
Yeah, that's my hope with sharing my story. I try to be an open book because I never know who's going to be inspired by something I do, and in the end, I hope that's what I can do.
Oh, it did for me. And if you come back to Oklahoma, you send me a text, you give me a call. You're always welcome in my little corner of Oklahoma.
I just got to remember to bring something to eat down there, though.
Yeah, maybe so. I might know a secret or two that I'd share with you about where to find something decent to eat. So, I know that you're a big supporter of the Ruffed Grouse Society and several other hunting organizations. Is there anything that you want to talk about relative to those organizations that you find to be particularly important? You want to point people to supporting anybody in particular?
Well, I'm a active member in NAVDA, the North American Versatile Hunting Dog Association,
That's right.
and I encourage people to get out and check that out, because if you have a versatile dog, any of the continental breeds are considered the versatile dogs. Short hairs, wire hairs, English pointers, Vizslas, you name it. And it's a great organization to help you train your dog, because in the end, our greatest conservation tool we have is a trained dog.
That's right.
Probably one of the more enjoyable ways to hunt is with a trained dog. I mean, nobody likes hunting with an untrained dog, but a trained dog truly is a conservation tool and game recovery, and it's just so enjoyable.
Yeah. And, I talk on my podcast about traveling, but I also like to try to help people. I think that folks that are just men and women that are just getting started, trying to figure out how to bird hunt, that there's a real kind of a gap there. I mean, they can buy a dog, do a little training, go to a preserve and shoot some birds, but that next step where they go out and they find wild birds and hunt wild birds, that's really hard for some people.
Well, most of my contacts, like we had talked on, like I said, I have a diverse group of friends with the lawyers, guns, and money. And part of the reason I have such a diverse group of friends is because of NAVDA. We're brought together because of our love for dogs. And everybody comes from a different background, but we all have the same love for dogs. And that led me to other conservation organizations like Pheasants Forever, Rough Grouse, and that's kind of been the link, has been the dogs.
And those members of those organizations want to help you be successful, just as they would maybe lean on you to help them be successful. And as a result, you're able to take that next step then and get out and pursue wild birds. If you were, for example, an unexperienced novice bird hunter, that would be a good way to meet people that would show you how it's done, for lack of a better term.
And I try to tell people that at a NAVDA test, where people bring their dogs to test them, and I try to tell new handlers that everybody they need to know is in front of them. If they take time to network and make contacts through those organizations, you're going to find friends all over the countries, and it's going to open doors, and you're going to have access to places you never had.
Yeah. And it's really something like a fraternity in a lot of ways. I mean, that's one of the things that doing this podcast is already teaching me, is that there's a real fraternity of bird hunters out there that really are special people.
Yeah, and grouse hunters are notorious for keeping their spots secret, but I've never met a grouse hunter. He may not tell you where the X is to go to on the map to find a grouse, but they will all explain to you how you should get your dog to work, the type of cover you should look for, the type of gear you should have, the tips and the things that when you're starting out you need to know. And with all that information, you'll figure out where the birds are.
Yeah. Yeah, and then as you get closer to people, eventually they'll trust you enough to take you and hunt with you in their own locations, would be my guess.
Yep.
That's just human nature.
If you break out a bottle of Pappy, you definitely get more access.
Amen to that. Now, I would point out that you broke that out after we were done hunting. I need to hold out next time. Play a little harder to get, I guess. Well, Craig, is there anything else? Is there anything that my listeners can do to help you?
No, just support your conservation organizations, because in the end, we all benefit.
That's right. That's right. And be open to helping other people that want to get involved in birding, right?
That's a fact.
Yeah. just be a friend and be willing to take people hunting and spend time with folks, because most of the people I've been hunting with are really good folks, and that's especially true of you. Well, I think that's about everything. That's everything I wanted to ask you about. You let me know how you do this year, and when you come to Oklahoma, give me a call, okay?
Yeah, I think you're going to be in North Dakota right behind us. So,
well, leave a bird or two for me, okay?
I'm sure we will leave a bird or two. I'm taking Paul with me, so.
I mean, I've seen you shoot, so I'm sure there'll be plenty.
I leave seed for the next guy every time, so don't worry about
that. Tell Paul I said hello, and I'm not sure which bunk I'll be in, but you can leave that bottle of Happy in the corner for me, okay?
It'll probably be empty when you get there.
Okay.
It'll probably be empty by this Saturday, so.
Well, think of me, okay?
Will do.
Okay. All right, well, have a good evening.
Yeah, good talking.
What? Okay. You gotta be kidding me! I saw one bird go down.